$20 billion is landing in the Twin Cities between now and 2030. A light rail line that took almost 20 years to build finally opens. A second one starts tearing up West Broadway. A street that's been closed since 1977 gets reconnected. An 8,000-seat amphitheater opens on a stretch of the Mississippi that's been industrial for 100 years. And by 2030, parts of the city are not going to look like the same place. So today, I'm breaking this down year by year, 2026 through 2030, what finishes when, which neighborhoods change first, and which ones are still waiting. There's one project on the list where the opening date has quietly moved 3 times. So this year is actually the year that decides whether an entire corridor of North Minneapolis and the northwest suburbs price it in, or if it sits there holding the bag for another 5 years. I'll show you what the city documents actually say about it, because it's not the number most people are repeating. I'm Arne Johansson. I've lived in Minneapolis for 25 years. I've sold right around 400 transactions. Before I was in real estate, I was in construction. So I'm looking at what actually gets built and what quietly gets valued, engineered out. If you own here, this is the timeline. First, where does Minneapolis actually stand right now? City population is right around 430,000 people. And here's the honest version. Between 2020 and 2025, Minneapolis grew only about 0.1%. The metro, in contrast, grew 3.6%. So the growth is out at the edges. Rosemount grew more than 24%. Downtown Minneapolis is a different story. About 60,500 people live in downtown Minneapolis. That's up more than 39% since 2017. And Minneapolis passed $1 billion construction value in 2025, and that's the 15th consecutive year. So 15 straight years is not a boom, that's a floor. Median sales price in Minneapolis is right around $365,000. That's up about 1.6%. So in 2026 is the year almost nothing opens and almost everything starts. The city put up $323 billion into this construction season alone. So that's 37 total projects. But the one to watch is on Lake Street. Nicollet Avenue is being rebuilt from Lake Street to Cecil Newman Lane, including the bridge over the Midtown Greenway. The city says Nicollet reopens to traffic by the end of 2026. That street has been severed since 1977, when they dropped the Kmart right in the middle of it. So the neighborhoods that are going to have the biggest impact from that opening is going to be Whittier, Lyndale neighborhoods, Central, and Powderhorn. That connection changes traffic for 4 neighborhoods all at once. And if you go to North Minneapolis, the park board's new 20-acre riverfront park at Upper Harbor Terminal opens this summer, and the crew broke ground on the amphitheater in May. Quick thing before we get into 2027, because this is where it gets specific. These projects don't lift every property the same amount. Some blocks pick up real value, some blocks get 5 years of construction, and not much else. If you want to know what one you're sitting on, I'll put together a free valuation of your home, a real one, not Zestimate, a one that's done very professionally. You can set it up in a call or a Zoom. There's a link right in the description. All right, 2027 is the payoff year. The Green Line expansion opens. That's going to be 14.5 miles, 16 new stations from downtown St. Paul through downtown Minneapolis. Then you got St. Louis Park, Hopkins, Minnetonka, and Eden Prairie. So nearly 56,000 people live within a 10-minute walk of that corridor. And here's the context nobody puts in. It's opening almost a decade late. It's the most expensive public works project in Minnesota state history. It started at $1.25 billion and it reached $2.8 billion. But whatever you think about how it got built, in 2027, the train runs. That's a permanent change to how those station areas price. This same summer, Upper Harbor Amphitheater opens. That's going to be around 8,000 seats, run by First Avenue and the Minnesota Orchestra. That's going to be 50 ticketed events a year. And in 2027 is when the ground opens up again. So you have major construction on the Blue Line extension begins. These are the years this city becomes a construction zone in the places that have been quiet. The Blue Line extension expansion moves into heavy construction from 2028 through 2032. That's Target Field North through Near North, Willard Hayes, Jordan neighborhood, Hawthorne, and Cleveland along West Broadway. Then Golden Valley, Robbinsdale, Crystal, and Brooklyn Park. Federal budget on that project is now officially at $3.8 billion. In Northeast Minneapolis, the Central Avenue rebuild and the Metro F line go into construction. So the neighborhoods that are going to be impacted by that are going to be Logan Park, Holland, Audubon Park, Wyndham Park, Columbia Park, and the old Kmart site is going to start going vertical. Then in downtown Minneapolis, the action plan puts pedestrianizing Nicollet Mall at the center, along with turning the warehouse district into an entertainment district. And the office to apartment conversion finally lands. Every one of those is a few hundred more people living downtown all year round. So by 2030, here's the loop that I want to bring you in. Ask most people when the Blue Line extension opens and they'll say 2030, but the City Council of Crystal own project page lays out the current timeline as early construction in 2027, heavy construction and testing 2028 through 2032, and the line opening in 2033, not 2030. That's a 3-year gap between what people believe and what the documents say. And if you own on the north side or in Robbinsdale or Crystal, that gap is the whole ball game. It's the difference between construction dust followed by a station opening and construction dust followed by more construction dust. Now here's the part the city press releases leave out. Number one, the city itself is not growing. Minneapolis added 0.1% in population in 5 years, while the suburbs added 20% plus. We are building transit-oriented infrastructure into a city with a flat population. Number two, transit ridership fell 4% in 2025. The light rail specifically fell 14%. We're opening a $2.9 billion train into declining ridership trend. Number three, as office values fall, the tax burden shifts onto home owners. That's your property tax bill. And it's a real cost against these gains. None of that means don't buy here. I own here, but anybody selling you a pure upside story about this city is selling you something. So who actually wins by 2030? Nearest term, the Green Line corridor, that's going to be Bryn Mawr neighborhood, Cedar Isles, Dean, Kenwood, and West Calhoun. Those price in 2027. North side has the biggest upside and the longest wait. You have McKinney neighborhood and Camden neighborhood, amphitheater in 2027, the Blue Line potentially in 2033, South Minneapolis around the new Nicollet site. You have Whittier and Powderhorn Park. Then you're also going to have East Phillips, Midtown Phillips, and Ventura Village get the roof depot. In downtown Minneapolis, you have the North Loop, Elliott Park, and downtown East riding that conversion wave. So here's what I tell you across my kitchen table. Infrastructure is the most permanent thing that happens to a piece of real estate. A hot market cools, a rate cycle turns, but a train station 2 blocks from your house is there for 50 years. And every buyer for the next 50 years pays for it. $20 billion is being spent deciding which blocks have that and which blocks don't. Most of it is already funded. So if you own a home in Minneapolis and you're thinking about selling, the question isn't whether the city is changing, it's whether your block is on the winning side of it and what it's worth right now versus in 2029. I'll do a free analysis for you, a real valuation on your home, what's actually happening within a mile of your address. We can do it on a Zoom call or over the phone. The link's in the description. And one thing I didn't get to, of every neighborhood on the winner list, there's one where the price movement has already started before a single train has run. I broke that down in this video right here. Until next time, we'll see you later.